Hello and welcome to a new episode of Behind the Scenes Airport Update Edition. Yeah, I mean, we are, I guess, in the second season of this series, and yet I have still not quite figured out what I really want to call it. But nevertheless, we are in the beginning of a new project. And in fact, this will be the biggest airport setup or biggest airport project I have ever made. Maybe not the airport itself, but the setup overall will most certainly be the biggest I have ever made. Now, as you can see behind me, there is not one, but actually two plates. The size of these plates is 122 centimeters by 244 centimeters, and then of course times 2, because I have two of these plates. Now, the next airport project, which I have already talked about quite a few times here on the channel, but for those of you who might be joining in for the first time, the next airport setup that I want to build will be based on Auckland. Now, I am actually still kind of in the process of figuring out how close to real life I want to make the setup. I think I will take inspiration ultimately from the real setup, but then give it my own little twist to make a setup that I like working on then also, and also afterwards like filming, because yeah, it's nice to have, a lot of nice angles where you can place these aircraft and then also afterwards filming them. And that's a process that I enjoy quite a lot. And I'm not sure if I would be able to get that if I made a real life replica of Auckland Airport, but we will take a lot of inspiration of the real airport setup. That means, for example, also I do want to add some water to this setup, because the real life Auckland Airport is right at the ocean. So things like that we will take into account. I will also add a lot of landside. That is one of the main things that I want to give a lot of space, because the landside of Auckland may be not unique, but yeah, I've been there, I've walked around in these areas and found it quite interesting, and I think it could be quite nice to be replicated in a Scale 500 setup. Now, as mentioned, in terms of setup, I would probably go for some form of a fictional terminal-wise setup, but inspired by real life. And what do we have in real life at Auckland Airport? We have a domestic terminal and we have an international terminal. Actually, right now they are starting constructions to refurbish that, and I guess the old domestic terminal will ultimately be closed down and then kind of have a fusion terminal. But in any case, that is what we have at the moment. Now, I was so lucky to win some 3D printed terminals, or a 3D printed terminal and a 3D printed hangar, which I want to integrate into that. At least that's the current plan. The terminal that I won is actually based on London City Airport, but I actually think that the elements could work quite well ultimately in a domestic terminal setup for New Zealand. The hangar, which I managed to get branded with Air New Zealand's branding, will of course also work really well for a maintenance base. And obviously with Auckland Airport, Air New Zealand will play a major role at that new airport setup. I have already a bunch of Air New Zealand aircraft models in Scale 500, or those that, well, you couldn't really buy. I have had custom made. Even the Dash 8 Q300 I have managed to include in that. So Air New Zealand wise, I think I'm pretty well covered at the moment when it comes to models. There are of course also other airlines present at Auckland, like Jetstar. I also have a few aircraft models for those, and there are a few other things coming, but I don't want to get too far into that right now, because we have a long way ahead and there might still be changes along the way. But these are definitely some buildings that I very much would like to include in this setup. For the rest, I'm still figuring out whether I should build it myself, whether I should find someone to 3D print me some buildings. And that is a process I will take you along with over the next couple of weeks and months. Now, while we are quite early in the project, it doesn't mean that I haven't bought any materials. As you saw, I have already the base plates that I intend to use, and I have actually also already bought a few other things apart from the terminal and hangar. I got a few sets from Herpa Wings. Once back in the day, Herpa, of course, basically enabled collectors to create an entire universe around their airports or around the aircraft models by creating not just airports but even landside setups. They made these quite interesting sets with some buildings. You have a set with tennis courts and pools. Then of course they also made some sets with trees in Scale 500, both I would call them normal trees with leaves and needles. I don't know if it's called like that, but yeah. And then palm trees as well. So I've got a few things of those. I will need quite many trees in my setup, and I will have to figure out, because I won't be able to buy enough Herpa sets of those. They're just not available. So I'll have to make some myself, I guess, or find them cheap elsewhere. That will be one of the main challenges in the near future, but we will manage to figure that out. But yeah, so I already have a bunch of things, of course, in terms of jet bridges. Well, I mean, you can take the jet bridges I've used for all the other setups that I have made so far. So I should be well covered there, as well as with GSE, given that with the expansion of Philadelphia, I invested quite a bit of money in getting more GSE. That should also not be a problem. And of course, it helps that I went through the HQ today and I found this, an unopened set with small cargo containers from Herpa Wings. I have no idea when I bought this. I assume I bought it for my Philadelphia setup for the expansion, but then forgot about it and never opened it. So yeah, finding stuff like that is of course also great because it just adds to the equipment that we will be able to add to the setup once it is built. But we are still quite a far way from that point. Now, where I in the past have been quite limited as to how big I could make my setups because of the limitations of space, of course now I have the luxury of using the Bongo Planes headquarters, which of course is also not unlimited in space, but it gives me the option to actually make a huge setup like I want to do here. I already benefited from that with my Philadelphia setup when I made the expansion. That was something I would not have been able to do in the past, but now I can. So yeah, I really will try to utilize that I have more space than ever before in order to make this new Auckland setup the biggest we've ever made. Now, if you are just as excited as I am about this new project, then please feel free to leave a like on this video. It really shows me the support for this new project. Of course, if you are new around here and don't want to miss out on any of the future videos, then hitting subscribe is also a quite good option, I would say, and it is free. Now with that, this is the end for this very first new airport update behind the scenes video project. I hope to see you soon again here on the channel. Until then, I'm checking out and bye.